from our time, our resources, and our support, because we know that it is what allows any person, no matter where they start, to have opportunity and a pathway to success. If somebody doesn't have access to a good education, we're frankly setting them up for failure. And in Arkansas, I think that every student should have not only access to education, but access to quality education. And I believe that every single child has the ability to learn when given the right tools, the right environment, and the right opportunity to do so. And we know that that looks different. I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, and each one of them learns and responds and reacts differently. And so we can't have a cookie cutter approach if we want to help every kid be successful. And so that's one of the main drivers for focusing so much on education. As a governor, you want to see economic development, you want to see great outcomes on the back end. None of the things that you want, a reduction in prison population, all of those things ultimately tie back to whether or not a child has access to a good education. And so the more and more we lean into that space, the more and more we're going to see success across the board and things that we want our state to thrive in. And so that's why we've made it our #1 priority, and we'll continue to do so and work with so many of the people in this room to help Arkansas students rise.
Fantastic. Dr. McKenzie, you spent 30 years working in education. Tell us why you spent your career in this space, and in particular why you think spending your time developing data and evidence is important.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I started as an early childhood teacher because I felt like that's where you can make the biggest difference in changing the trajectory of the river. I've moved into traditional K-12 education, and I didn't know if what I was doing was really making a difference for the kids in my class, right? I didn't see anybody else's class. We didn't have a lot of testing data way back in the Stone Age. But being able to use something like value-added models, which we use for teacher merit pay, shows you that you're making a difference for kids. And it's not about the kids who walk in the door, it's about what you do with them once they get there. And that's a super powerful tool that we have at our disposal right now. So now I'm working in policy and with doctoral students, sort of the full end of the spectrum, but it's all about education and helping people change their lives for the better.
Fantastic. So it's been almost 2 years since your first legislative session, where the legislature passed a package of reforms that are probably the most comprehensive that we've seen in the country in a very long time. So give us a little assessment of what you think has been working well and where we are today.
Well, you know, one of the things we talk a lot about, and I see several members of the legislature that are in the room, and certainly don't mean this as an offense, because we would not be here and be in the position that we're in without a great partnership. And Keith Brooks, who is the lead sponsor for Arkansas Learns, who's here in the front and was a vital part of us getting that passed. But frankly, passing the legislation, while it certainly wasn't easy and came with its own set of challenges, was not the hard part. The implementation is the hard part. You can pass all of the great bills, you can create all of the best policy in the world, but if you don't implement correctly, then it really doesn't matter. And that's the stage we're in right now, is the implementation side. And while I think we had an incredible and transformative piece of legislation, we're starting to see the impact of it now. I'm really proud of what we were able to do, because we could look at the numbers, and I love that you focus so heavily and spend so much of your time on data and research. That's exactly what we did in the process of writing Learns. I see several people out in the crowd that helped us on the front end, but we didn't just say, oh, these things sound fun and like good ideas, but we knew that there was data that supported what we were doing that would change the trajectory of where Arkansas was headed. If you look at all the statistics, Arkansas was basically 48th, 49th, and 50th in every category. And so if we wanted to see something really different, which I think every person in this room does and did, we had to do something pretty drastic. And that's what Arkansas Learns brought to the table, was a total flip of the table and transformative look at how we approach education. And that started from the very ground all the way up. And so one of the biggest focuses was literacy. And that's one of the places where we have started to see a shift, and we're seeing an impact. The state has now hired north of 120 literacy coaches that are being deployed into individual districts and schools and working one-on-one with students who need it the most. We've been to a number of the schools and programs and seen firsthand the impact that that is having on students. We know that if a kid is not reading by that critical benchmark of 3rd grade, then we are 100% setting them up for failure. If you need an example of how we know that, go look at our prisons. 70% of the prison population can't read. It's a very startling, telling statistic. And we know that we have to do a better job investing in those students before they get past the point of being caught up. And that's exactly what we did through the Literacy Coach program. And we knew that it worked because we had seen other states take it on. I've already made this comment once today at an economic development announcement this morning, so I feel really guilty taking another knock on Mississippi. But traditionally, Arkansas is fighting at the bottom with Mississippi, not in literacy. We used to. And then Mississippi implemented a program similar to the one that we did through Arkansas Learns, and they went from the bottom of the pack. They're now number 22 in the country, and that's what Arkansas wants to be able to follow. So we took that model and we added to it, and we're already starting to see the impact of it. One of the other big places, education freedom accounts. We now have just over 14,000 students who are in an environment where they have the ability to thrive. I've met a lot of these students and families whose kids were struggling, not because of necessarily anything wrong with the place they were, it just wasn't the environment that fit their needs. In the first year, 50% of the students who were taking and receiving education freedom accounts were students with disabilities. That told us that there were so many students not having their needs met where they were, and now they're getting the opportunity to go where they can thrive and learn best. That is a big deal, not just for our state, but for those individual students. And it is changing lives one at a time through those opportunities. One of the things that we talk a lot about, and you've heard some about already today, is better pay for our teachers. We know what a difference it makes to have a good educator in the front of the classroom. Without that, our schools are not going to be successful. No matter how many, again, great laws we write, if we don't have good teachers in the front of the classroom, it's not going to make a difference. So making sure we prioritize that, and we showed how important our teachers were by not only raising the base salary, but making sure every single teacher got at least a pay raise was really critical and important part of Learns. And there were other pieces that get a lot less fanfare that were part of the reward process for our teachers. One was increasing the amount of paid maternity leave that our teachers are eligible for. Now in the state of Arkansas, you can get up to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. We are one of only 4 states in the country that offer that. That's a big deal when 70% of your educators are women. That helps us not only recruit new people into the profession, but retain a lot of our great teachers that want to come back to the classroom, that don't want to leave that profession. The merit-based teacher pay is another big piece of that. Just this year, we were able to reward over $10 million to over 3,000 educators in the state of Arkansas. Some of them getting a bonus of up to $10,000 for teaching in some of the most critical areas of need that we have in the state. Those are the types of investments that we are making and will continue to make in our teachers. Sorry, I can go on this one for a really long time, but I'll try to put a bow on it and wrap it up. One of the other pieces, though, that rewards our teachers is the student loan repayment program. Another one of the areas that doesn't get talked about a lot, but something that removes a burden and a barrier so that we're keeping more of those teachers in the classroom. Those are all part of the Learns Act, and now we're on the implementation side. And you know, one of the stories I like to tell is that when my dad was governor, and even well after, if you ask him today, maybe not here in a few months, but certainly right now, if you ask him what's the best job you've ever had, without question, hands down, my dad will tell you there's no greater job than being governor. I heard it my entire childhood, most of my adult life. He repeated this over and over and over again. So I get elected to office. I've been in the governor's office for a couple weeks. We're in the midst of battling through trying to get Learns passed. And it had been a particularly rough 48 hours, so I called my dad and I said, hey, you know how you're always telling me that being governor is the best job in the world? He's like, yeah. I said, when exactly will that start? And my dad kind of laughed, and in a way that only a very loving parent can do, he said, well, Sarah, you haven't done anything yet. I was like, ouch. Here I am, kind of proud of myself. I've gotten elected, I'm governor, and my dad just cuts right to it, and he says, you haven't done anything yet. He said, but let me explain. He said, at some point, in a few months, you're going to be finished with this legislative session, and you're going to be out and about, you're going to be at one of your kids' basketball games or the grocery store or somewhere where it's totally unexpected. And someone is going to come up to you and they're going to tell you that because of the work that you did, their kid is now in a school where they're absolutely thriving. When they once were struggling, they're doing things that they never thought were possible. You're going to meet a teacher who was considering leaving the teaching profession that stayed in the classroom because she can now afford to live and provide for her family by doing so. He said, when that moment happens, that's when you'll know it's the best job in the world. Fast forward to where we are now, and you ask me how I know that the impact is real, because there's not a community I go into where I don't get to hear somebody's story like that. There's not a moment or a day that goes by where we aren't hearing story after story of people whose lives are better because of the work that so many of the people in this room helped make possible. And we know it's going to be one of the things that transforms our state and makes it better.
Fantastic. So you really focused on those high leverage points where we can make the most difference for kids. We've got a lot of early childhood education folks in this room today. Early childhood education is arguably the most important time, critical time to invest in our kids. It's the foundation for future learning. Can you talk about the changes that were mandated through the LEARNS Act and what's on the horizon for early childhood education?
Sure. Some of that was streamlining some of the department function and moving that all into one place. And I see Secretary Oliva and several members of the Department of Education that are here, and they have been absolute rock stars, and they are doing heroes work every single day, but moving all of that under one roof, under one office, allowed us to streamline and make a lot more efficient. One of the big problems we had is we didn't know coming in where we had access to early childhood education and where we didn't. And so that had to be one of the first steps, was identifying the islands and deserts. Where do we have problems? Where do we have successes? And where we have successes, how do we duplicate it and expand it? And where we are missing, how do we add to it? Now we have points of contact in all 75 counties, which is making a big difference in our ability to serve every single population, every single community around the state. Streamlining that process and making that a lot clearer, I think, is one of the biggest reasons we're going to see those efforts change. We know how critical it is for students at the earliest age to start having that access, and every student needs it. And so making sure we can identify where we have it and where we don't is a big step. And I anticipate that we'll have continued expansion and progress over certainly the next coming school year as that access continues to expand.
So another big initiative that you've launched in partnership with OEP, so you gave out Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation, to all state governors, a bunch of state officials, legislators, and you actually recently hosted Jonathan Haidt here in Arkansas and talked with school leaders with Jonathan. What actions are you prioritizing to protect students from the potentially harmful impacts of social media and smartphones?
Sure, and don't feel like you have to ask me all the questions. I'm happy to share some time here, but
Oh, I'll jump in.
but don't worry, I'm looking at you because I know this is something that not only you're extremely knowledgeable, but very passionate about as well. And you were present in the meeting where our program was actually born from. So as a mom, I have a lot of concerns about the level of access and the changes that we are seeing in our young people, in large part due to the rise in smartphones and access to social media. We've seen our suicide, our anxiety, our depression rates skyrocket. At the same time, we've seen our classroom engagement plummet. One statistic after another tells us how bad these are for our kids. and yet we've given unfettered access day after day after day to students, not just in Arkansas, but all over the world. And now people are paying attention, saying, hold on just a second, this may not be the best idea. We may need to take a look at what we've done here and start pulling that back. We are proud of the fact that we're leading on that in Arkansas. We passed legislation, which ended up in a lawsuit, but we're still hopeful, but passed legislation prohibiting new social media accounts for anyone under the age of 18 without parental permission. We're not saying you can't have it, we're just saying your parents need to know about it and say that you can. One of the other things that we've done, and this was the meeting I was referencing, we had over the summer in July a meeting with about 25 to 30 superintendents from all over the state, and we were asking them what they're seeing in mental health of students. And these were from big districts and small, a mix from all over the state, and consistently we were hearing what a struggle they have with the mental health crisis that's taking place. There's nobody that's left out of it. There's no demographic that's not touched by it. And so what could we do to help? And that was when we came up with and launched the Phone Free Grant Program, thinking that we would have a handful of people respond and that we would put some initial seed money into it. I get a call from Jacob, we've well exceeded the amount that we can cover. I said, we'll find some more money. I said, it just means we have to have more students want to participate, but within 6 weeks, 75% of districts around the state had voluntarily opted in to go phone free. That is astronomical to have that kind of result and that kind of demand so quickly in anything, much less something that the government's involved in. We never move that fast on anything. And so to see that kind of result, to me, showed that there was a real desperation and a hunger to see something change. And for the state to get to be the bad guy if we need to, then we're fine to do that. We've heard from so many teachers who are thankful not to be the phone police. I have asked, though, that if you see my kids, if you could tell them that it wasn't me, I'd be okay with that. My 7th grade daughter is not a big fan of this program, but we're working through that privately, separately at our house. But it's one of the biggest fights we have. But, you know, we went into several schools over the last couple of weeks after implementing this program, and now even the students are coming up and thanking us because it's relieving a lot of pressure from them. There's so much stress already in being a kid right now that anything that we can do that helps relieve some of that, they're thankful for. And removing the phone and removing that from the classroom not only helps them actually learn better and faster and more productive, but it also relieves just a lot of that personal stress. Did somebody respond? Did they like my text? Did somebody say something mean on, you know, a picture that I posted? Taking a lot of that away during the school day has made a big difference. And we, as a team, I sent the book, Jonathan Haidt's book, to every governor in the country, asking them, please read this and see what you can do in your state. We also sent it to every single member of the Arkansas State Legislature and the people that want to participate. This is not a red or blue, a Democrat or Republican issue. This is something impacting everybody. And so we're bringing a lot of people together to focus on this issue. And I think we're going to make a significant change, not just in the classroom, but the long-term effects of the kids that are growing up in our state and hopefully our country.
So as the one doing this research, that 75% of districts signed up to participate, no random assignment, it's a little nutty, right? So I need to find the data and check it to see if our kids are learning more. We've been going around the state doing focus groups. We've done surveys of 13,000 kids on different mental health pieces. I'm doing a session right after this if you want to learn more. But it is very bold and exciting, and no research like this has been done anywhere in the country before. So we're leading in that too.
And if I could, again, this is such a big area of focus for us right now. A couple of the early pieces of information, I should have included this in my first answer, but one of the things that sets Arkansas's program apart from so many others is this partnership. And that was a suggestion that both you made and Jonathan Haidt made. Don't just implement the program, show that it works. Have real data that you can present to other schools, and we want that proof of concept so that we can take that to schools that maybe aren't participating or districts that aren't doing it district-wide. How do we get more and more people to take this on? In the first year, so Bentonville schools started before a lot of before the state program actually had been announced and was offered, and you all worked with them and did research. And some of the initial findings, 51% of the individuals, they saw a 51%, drop in verbal and physical aggression in 1 year. They saw a 57% drop in drug offenses in their school in the first year. They also saw an 80+% level of support for the program from teachers, parents, and students. Things like that, you don't get numbers like that in anything that quickly. And so to see just the level of impact is something that I'm really excited about and hopeful that we'll be able to continue to grow that program.
So we've been talking about older kids old enough to be on social media. We know these kids get training in our Arkansas public schools and then hopefully graduate. We also know that success doesn't end at graduation. The ultimate goal of education is to help our students compete in the global labor market and enhance the state's economy. Tell us a little bit about Arkansas's Career Ready Pathways program and opportunities to earn credentials in high-wage, high-demand careers, and how this policy will help our students and drive growth for our economy.
I guess that's me. So, you know, one of the big things that I feel like, frankly, we've done wrong for a really long time is teach kids a lot of information, but not necessarily how to do something with what they know and with what they learn. And so at the end of the day, if a person is finishing their educational journey and they're not stepping into the workforce or they're not qualified or ready to do so, then frankly, we haven't done our job. The ultimate goal is not just to see what they know, it's to see what they can do. And so making sure that our students are prepared, whether it's after high school, after a trade or vocational program, or a four-year university or higher, it's can they go into the workforce? Are they prepared to take on a job and a career and a task? And so looking at how we provide that opportunity for every single student. For a really, really long time, we as a society, not necessarily we in the room, but we as a society told everybody that if you didn't go to a four-year university, then you were somehow less than, when nothing could be further from the truth. There are a lot of jobs in a state, especially like Arkansas, that don't require a four-year degree, and you can make a really good living doing that and have a great life, a great career. And so opening up a lot of those pathways was really important, and talking about how you can still be successful and how you can still lead a great life right here in Arkansas through some of those programs was really important. And that's where the dual track diploma was born from. Not just that kind of perception, but also making sure it was industry driven. If we went out and we produced 100 welders, but we only needed 10, then we really haven't done anything remarkable. And so making sure that the workforce that we were producing was actually meeting the demand of the industry that exists in Arkansas was a big priority. So we looked at where does Arkansas have the right to win? Where can we be successful? Where can we lead? And we determined there are about 18 high growth, high wage, high demand areas. And this was through a cross section of government. This was the Department of Education, Commerce, our workforce development teams, all working together to identify what are these areas. And now every single high school in the state is required to offer some class and some certification in one of those 18 areas. That helps our students when they graduate, they're prepared right then to step into the workforce. That doesn't mean it has to end there or that it needs to end there, but it gives them that opportunity. And we know that those jobs aren't going anywhere. They're going to continue to be in demand, not in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, but in 10 and 15 and 20 years. And so it has long-term sustainability and something that we know our students are being set up for that great success path.
So another area that you have been focused is expanding school choice for students in Arkansas to help them find the learning environment that actually meets their needs. I think it's safe to say that Arkansas is now a leader in the United States on school choice. I'm interested to know what advice you would give other states, other state leaders, policymakers, whenever they go to look at school choice policy and how to make it work best for parents and families.
I think the best piece of advice I can give is don't be afraid to take it on. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to come with, I think, a lot of challenges, maybe even a little bit of criticism, but I think that it is so important for every student that we are serving to have that opportunity, and for every parent to be empowered to make a decision about what and where is best for their kid to be educated. And so my advice is make and find a program that works for you. In Arkansas, we went with a phased-in approach because we felt like it was the best way to bring ultimately universal school choice to our state, but it was by taking it step by step and not just doing it all at once with one quick swoop. And so taking that phased-in approach has worked well for Arkansas. We're seeing great success in the program, and a lot of families take advantage of it. Again, we started with those students that we felt like were in greatest need, with the students in F-rated schools, as well as students with disabilities and specific learning challenges. And then in phase 2, opening that up to veteran and military families, law enforcement and first responders, because we know that those are people who have given so much to us that they should be some of the first beneficiaries of a program like that. And so very exciting to be able to give something back to that community who has given and continues to give so much to our state. And like I said, we have about 15,000, just under 15,000 families and students that have taken advantage and been able to participate in that. We expect it and can hope for it to continue to grow as we open up into year 3, but that doesn't mean that's the path for everybody. That's why it was so equally important that we invested heavily into our public education. In many places, that's going to be the best place, the best location, and the best opportunity for a student to thrive. And we need all areas and all opportunities to be available, and that's been our ultimate goal and something that we think is going to help set us apart long term.
So we're bumping up against time here. This has been a great conversation. Really appreciate the rich answers with lots of detail. I'm interested now, as we close up here, and I'll turn to Dr. McKenzie to start off and give Governor Sanders the last word. What are you most excited about in the education space over the next 5 years? We're about to enter a legislative session, so what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about the progress we're going to see in our students. We have a new assessment that's more aligned with the curriculum in the classroom. We're being very data-driven. We're bringing early childhood and aligning it with K-12. We're going to connect with higher ed and workforce more. It's only when you get all the gears turning together that you can drive the car. So I feel strongly that we're headed for great improvement in students' literacy and their later life outcomes.
Same question. Okay, just double checking, making sure. I certainly agree. I mean, one of the sad facts is that we had no place to go but up. One of the other sad facts is we had no place to go but up. And Arkansas has the ability and the opportunity, and I think certainly the drive and the willingness to lead in this space. Our students deserve for us to be number one. We shouldn't be competing for last place. Our students deserve to have every opportunity that any other kid anywhere in the country has, and now they're getting it. Our teachers deserve to be rewarded. Our parents deserve to be empowered. There are so many aspects. I could talk about all of the things that are happening in our state on this topic for hours and hours, but I won't make anybody suffer through that. But the biggest thing and my biggest takeaway certainly is progress, but it's also opportunity. And we have it, and we're taking advantage of it, and the best and most important beneficiary is the kids. Our kids are going to have the chance to thrive, and they can do it in Arkansas, and they never have to leave. And that's something that I'm extremely excited about, and something I'm really proud of, that we have a great success story right here in Arkansas.
This has been great. Let's thank our panelists, Dr. McKenzie, Governor Sanders. We've got a 15-minute break now, so the next sessions will start at 1:30. Feel free to mingle in this room. I'll put the session calendar up so that you can see what the next sessions are, but we'll break until 1:30. Thank you.